The wind howled through the mountain valley, sharp and cold against Anna's face. She tightened her scarf and smiled at her husband David, who held her hand as they walked along the narrow trail. Her other hand gently rested on her growing belly. She was 6 months pregnant, and despite the little arguments lately, she still believed this trip was a sign that their marriage was healing. David had told her it was a romantic getaway, a chance to remember how they once loved each other. Anna wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that the man she had married, the man she had trusted with her whole heart, was still there behind his distant eyes. The sun dipped low, painting the cliffside in hues of red and gold. Anna paused to admire the view. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she said softly. David smiled, but it wasn't the smile she remembered. His hand lingered on her shoulder, firm, almost too firm. "Yes," he said coldly. "Beautiful and perfect." Something in his tone sent a shiver down her spine. She turned to look at him, her lips parting to ask if something was wrong. But before she could speak, his hand pressed against her back, hard. Anna gasped as the ground vanished beneath her feet. Her scream echoed through the canyon as her body plunged downward, the wind ripping the sound from her throat. Her arms flailed desperately, clawing at the cliffside. For a heart-stopping moment, she felt her fingers close around a jagged branch jutting out from the rock. It tore at her skin, but she held on with every ounce of strength left in her trembling body. Her heart pounded, each beat a thunder in her ears. She looked up in horror. David stood above her, staring down with cold, calculating eyes. No panic, no fear, no attempt to save her, only satisfaction. "David," she cried, tears streaking her cheeks. "Help me, please, I'm carrying your child." But David didn't move. Instead, he leaned forward, his lips twisting into a cruel smirk. "That's exactly why, Anna. With you gone, everything is mine. The money, the house, the freedom. You and that baby, you're just in the way." Her chest tightened. She couldn't breathe. The man she loved, the father of her unborn child, wanted her dead. Her fingers slipped a little on the branch, dirt crumbling beneath her nails. The weight of her body dragged her down. Pain shot through her arms, but she refused to let go. Her baby's life depended on her strength. Above her, David turned and walked away, his footsteps fading. He didn't even look back. Alone, bleeding, dangling above certain death, Anna's vision blurred. Her strength was fading fast. She whispered through trembling lips, "Please, someone, save us." And then from somewhere up the trail came the sound of voices. Distant at first, but growing closer. The crunch of footsteps, the echo of laughter, the rustle of coats against the wind. Anna's heart leapt with a fragile spark of hope. But would they reach her in time, or would her grip give way to the abyss below? Before that terrible day on the mountain, Anna had lived with the comforting illusion that her life was complete. She had a husband, a home, and now a child on the way. To everyone on the outside, she looked like the picture of a woman who had it all. Friends envied her, neighbors admired her, and her parents constantly told her how lucky she was to have David. Anna herself believed it too, at least at first. She had fallen in love with David when she was only 22. He was charming, ambitious, and always knew the right words to make her feel safe. He promised her forever, and on their wedding day, she thought she was walking into a fairy tale. For a few years, it even felt like one. But slowly, shadows crept into their marriage. David worked longer hours, came home smelling of perfume that wasn't hers, and brushed off her questions with cold excuses. When Anna confronted him, he would sigh, accuse her of being paranoid, and then embrace her just enough to make her doubt her own suspicions. She convinced herself it was just stress, just a phase, just something they would overcome together. And then came the baby. The moment Anna saw the positive test, tears of joy filled her eyes. She imagined tiny hands gripping her fingers, a sweet baby laugh filling their house, and David holding their child proudly. She ran to him with the news, expecting his face to light up with happiness. Instead, his smile was stiff, his eyes distant. "That's great," he muttered, hugging her with arms that felt colder than they ever had. But Anna, desperate for love, desperate for stability, ignored the chill. She convinced herself that fatherhood would bring him back, that once the baby arrived, they would be a real family again. She decorated the nursery, bought baby clothes, and showed David every little purchase. He nodded, distracted, never really looking at her. but she didn't let herself see the truth. To the world, they were the perfect couple awaiting their first child. Anna clung to that image like it was a lifeline. At family gatherings, David played the part, holding her hand and smiling for pictures. Anna's parents were proud, and she didn't want to break their hearts by telling them how distant he had become. So she smiled too, hiding her unease behind laughter and polite words. At night, when David rolled away from her in bed, she laid awake staring at the ceiling, whispering to the baby growing inside her, "It will get better. Daddy loves us. He's just busy. When you arrive, everything will change." But deep down, a quiet voice in her heart warned her that something was wrong. She silenced it, hoping love was enough to save what was breaking. And then, one evening, as she washed the dishes, she found a receipt tucked into David's coat pocket, an expensive necklace, charged just days before, but never given to her. Her hands trembled as water dripped from her fingers. She knew then that the illusion she'd been clinging to was slipping away, but she had no idea how far David's betrayal was about to go. After finding the receipt for the necklace, Anna tried to ignore the sting in her chest. Maybe, she told herself, it was a gift he hadn't had the chance to give her yet. Maybe it was meant for their anniversary. She wanted to believe that so badly, but the seed of doubt had been planted, and it grew with every passing day. David's behavior became harder to dismiss. He was constantly glued to his phone, smiling faintly at messages he quickly hid whenever she walked into the room. Sometimes he left late at night, muttering about urgent meetings, but he returned smelling faintly of perfume and alcohol. When Anna asked where he had been, his voice grew sharp, his eyes full of annoyance. "Stop questioning me, Anna," he snapped one evening. "You're pregnant, you're emotional, you're imagining things." The words stung, but what hurt more was the coldness in his tone. The man who used to whisper love into her ear now made her feel like a burden. Still, she swallowed her tears and said nothing. She told herself it was temporary, that stress made him act this way, that everything would be fine once the baby arrived. But late at night, alone in their bedroom, Anna couldn't silence her fears. She stared at the empty side of the bed where David should have been and placed her hand on her belly. "It's okay," she whispered to her unborn child. "We'll be okay. Mommy's here. Mommy won't leave you." The signs became undeniable one afternoon when she decided to surprise David at his office with lunch. She walked in, carrying a homemade meal, her heart full of fragile hope. But David wasn't there. His assistant gave her a strained smile, hesitated, then muttered, "He left early today, with a client." Anna forced a smile, but her heart sank. As she turned to leave, she noticed something on the assistant's desk, a bouquet of roses with a card. She couldn't resist glancing at it. Her breath caught. The card read, "To my love, can't wait to see you tonight." It wasn't signed with her name. Her fingers shook as she placed the card back. She didn't want to believe it, but the truth screamed louder with every clue she uncovered. David wasn't just distant. He wasn't just stressed. He was betraying her. That night, David came home late again, the scent of unfamiliar perfume clinging to him like a cruel reminder. Anna sat at the kitchen table, the untouched dinner growing cold. She wanted to confront him, to scream, to demand answers. But when he walked in, looking annoyed and tired, the words caught in her throat. She was too afraid of the truth, too afraid of hearing him admit what she already knew. So she sat in silence, watching him eat without a word, her heart breaking into pieces no one could see. And then, as she cleared the dishes, she heard his phone buzz on the counter. The screen lit up with a message. Anna froze, her pulse pounding in her ears. The name flashing across the screen wasn't hers. Her hands trembled as she reached for the phone, knowing that what she was about to read could shatter her world forever. Anna's fingers hovered over David's phone, her breath uneven. She knew she shouldn't invade his privacy, but the fear clawing at her heart was unbearable. Her thumb hesitated for one final second before she unlocked the screen. The message was still there, glowing like a cruel wound across her vision. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, my love. Last night was unforgettable. Yours forever, Claire." The world tilted beneath her feet. Claire. A name she had never heard before. Anna's knees weakened, and she clutched the counter to keep from collapsing. Her heart pounded so loud it drowned out every sound around her. She read the message again and again, hoping she had misunderstood, but there was no mistake. David wasn't just distant, he was with someone else. She set the phone down just as David walked back into the kitchen. "What are you doing?" he asked sharply, his eyes narrowing. Anna's lips trembled, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Who's Claire?" she whispered. His face hardened instantly. For a moment she thought she saw fear flash in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by anger. He snatched the phone from the counter. "Don't go through my messages," he barked. "That's none of your business." "None of my business." Anna's voice cracked. "I'm your wife, David. I'm carrying your child. How can you—" "Stop," he cut her off, his tone sharp like a knife. "You're overreacting. You always do this. You're paranoid, jealous, and pathetic. Claire is just a colleague, nothing more." But the lie sat heavy in the air, stinking of betrayal. Anna's eyes filled with tears. "Then why does she call you her love? Why would she say last night was unforgettable?" David froze for a fraction of a second before forcing a dismissive laugh. "She's dramatic. You know how some women are. You're blowing this out of proportion." But Anna knew. Deep in her heart, she knew. His excuses, his coldness, the perfume, the late nights, it all added up. The man she thought she loved had been living a double life, and she had been too blind to see it. Her voice shook as she whispered, "How long, David? How long have you been lying to me?" David's jaw clenched, his silence louder than any confession. He grabbed his coat and muttered, "I don't have time for this," before storming out the door, leaving Anna standing alone in the kitchen, clutching her belly as silent sobs racked her body. She sank into a chair, the phone still glowing in her memory. Every dream she had built, every promise she had believed, shattered in that moment. She looked down at her stomach, whispering to her unborn child, "I'm so sorry. I thought your father loved us. I thought he'd protect us." The house was silent, but Anna felt suffocated by the weight of truth. She wasn't paranoid, she wasn't imagining things. David had betrayed her in the cruelest way possible. And as the night stretched into dawn, Anna realized something terrifying. David's betrayal was deeper than she imagined, and soon it would threaten not just her marriage, but her very life. Days after the confrontation, the house grew colder than ever. David hardly spoke to Anna, and when he did, his words were sharp, dismissive, laced with annoyance. Anna carried the weight of betrayal in silence, her heart breaking a little more each time she saw his face turn away from hers. But then, unexpectedly, David changed. One morning, as Anna sat quietly at the breakfast table, he walked in with a smile that almost looked genuine. He kissed her cheek, something he hadn't done in months, and set down a small envelope in front of her. "What's this?" she asked cautiously. "A trip," he said smoothly. "Just the two of us. I've been distant, and I know it. I want to make it right. Let's go away together, spend time, remember what we had before." Anna's eyes widened. A trip? The idea filled her with hope, fragile but powerful. She wanted to believe him so badly. Maybe this was the turning point. Maybe David finally realized the importance of their marriage and their child. She touched her belly, whispering silently to her baby, "Maybe Daddy is coming back to us." David continued, his voice warm and convincing. "There's a mountain lodge, quiet and beautiful. You'll love it. Fresh air will be good for you and the baby. Think of it as a second honeymoon." Tears welled in Anna's eyes. She wanted to forgive him. She wanted her family to be whole. With trembling hands she nodded. "Yes, let's go." That night she packed her things carefully, folding her favorite maternity dresses, imagining peaceful walks and quiet nights by the fireplace. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to smile. She even called her mother, telling her how David was planning a surprise trip. Her mother sighed in relief, happy to hear things were improving. But behind David's charming smile was a mind consumed by darkness. This wasn't about reconciliation. This wasn't about love. In secret, he had already promised Claire that everything would be taken care of soon. With Anna gone, he would inherit her assets, claim her shares, and finally live freely with his mistress. On the day of departure, David played the perfect husband. He carried her bags, opened the car door, even held her hand as they drove up the winding roads into the mountains. Anna's heart, though bruised, began to flutter with cautious hope. She leaned her head against the window, whispering to herself, "Maybe this is the fresh start we need." David glanced at her, his expression unreadable. To Anna, it looked like love. To David, it was calculation. Every mile brought them closer, not to a romantic escape, but to the cliffside where he had already decided her fate. As the car climbed higher, the roads narrowed, the trees grew thicker, and the air colder. Anna smiled, unaware of the danger sitting right beside her. She turned to David, her voice soft and full of fragile faith. "Thank you for doing this. I knew you still loved me." David squeezed her hand, his lips curving into a smile. But behind that smile, his mind whispered the cruelest truth. This trip would be her last. The mountain air was crisp, biting at Anna's cheeks as David parked the car near the edge of a scenic overlook. From where they stood, the world stretched endlessly below. Valleys blanketed in green, rivers glinting like silver threads, and peaks lost in the mist. To Anna, it looked like a painting. To David, it looked like the perfect stage for his crime. "Isn't it beautiful?" Anna whispered, wrapping her coat tighter around her. She was tired from the long drive, but the view filled her with a rare sense of peace. Her hand instinctively rested on her round belly, caressing the life growing inside her. David forced a smile. "Yes, beautiful. The kind of place where problems disappear." Anna turned to him, her heart aching at the tenderness she thought she saw in his eyes. Maybe he truly wanted to fix things. Maybe this trip was the fresh start she had prayed for every night. She leaned closer, resting her head on his shoulder. But David's body stiffened. His jaw clenched as guilt and greed warred inside him. He remembered Claire's words the night before. "When she's gone, we can finally be free." That promise echoed in his mind, cold and intoxicating. Anna stepped toward the railing, gazing down at the abyss below. "It feels like the whole world is at our feet," she said softly, her voice carrying a childlike wonder. David's eyes narrowed. He saw not wonder, but opportunity. The sheer drop was merciless. One push, and everything would be over. No witnesses, no evidence, no turning back. His heart pounded, but it wasn't fear. It was anticipation. "David," Anna said suddenly, breaking his thoughts. She turned to him with tears glistening in her eyes. "I know things haven't been perfect, but I still love you. I believe we can be happy again. Don't you?" Her words cut deep, slicing through the thin layer of humanity he had left. For a fleeting second he hesitated. But then the weight of his own ambition crushed the hesitation away. He forced a tender smile, stepping behind her, resting his hands gently on her shoulders. Anna closed her eyes, thinking it was affection. She let out a shaky sigh of relief, whispering, "Thank you for bringing me here. I needed this." And then it happened. David's hands pressed harder, shoving forward with sudden violence. Anna screamed as her body lurched over the edge. For a terrifying heartbeat, there was nothing beneath her but air and the dizzying plunge into death. She clawed wildly, her nails scraping against rock until by sheer luck, her fingers caught a branch jutting from the cliffside. Her arms burned, her nails tore, and her body dangled helplessly above the abyss. Her voice broke into sobs. "David, please help me. I'm carrying your child." But David only stared down at her, his face twisted into a cruel mask. His voice was calm, almost soothing. "That's why this has to happen, Anna. Goodbye." Anna's grip slipped slightly, dirt crumbling beneath her fingers. The branch groaned under her weight. Panic rose in her chest. She knew she couldn't hold on forever. And then, faint, distant, the sound of footsteps echoed along the trail. Voices carried through the cold air. Strangers were coming closer. But would they arrive in time, or would Anna's strength give out before she could be saved? Anna's fingers ached as they clutched the jagged branch jutting out of the cliffside. Her arms shook violently, her nails cracked and bleeding. Each second felt like an eternity. Her life, and the life of her unborn child, hanging by the thinnest thread of strength she had left. Above her, David stood motionless. He didn't reach for her. He didn't shout for help. Instead, he stared with chilling calm, as though he were watching a problem solve itself. His silence was more terrifying than any words. "Please, David," Anna cried, her voice breaking. "Don't do this. Think of our baby." David's eyes darkened. "That child is nothing but a chain around my neck. And you've always been too blind to see it." Anna's tears blurred her vision. Her heart shattered, not just from the fear of dying, but from the cruel truth that the man she had trusted with her soul had never loved her at all. Her grip slipped again. The branch groaned under her weight, and she knew her strength was fading fast. Somewhere above, voices grew louder, the sound of hikers approaching. but they were still too far. David heard them too, and panic flickered across his face for the first time. He stepped closer to the edge, his voice a harsh whisper. "Let go, Anna. Do it now, before they see." Anna shook her head furiously, desperation fueling her. "No, I won't let you take my life or my child's." Her words struck him like a challenge. With a cold glare, David crouched low, his hand reaching toward her. For a moment, hope surged. Maybe, just maybe, he was going to pull her up, but then his palm pressed against her fingers, prying them one by one from the branch. Anna screamed as the last of her strength gave way. The world spun, wind roared in her ears, and her body plunged into the abyss. Rocks blurred past, branches snapped, pain ripped through her side as she tumbled. And then, suddenly, impact. Not the brutal crash she expected, but a jarring thud against a ledge hidden halfway down the cliff. She gasped, her body broken and bruised but alive. The branch she had crashed onto had stopped her fall just enough to spare her and her baby. Above, David peered over the edge. His face paled when he realized she wasn't gone completely, but then the voices grew louder, and panic seized him. He turned quickly and disappeared into the trees, leaving Anna to die slowly on the ledge. Her breaths came ragged, her vision dimming. Pain coursed through every nerve, and she felt herself slipping into darkness. She wrapped her arms protectively around her belly, whispering weakly, "Hold on, little one. Mommy won't give up." Her body lay still, hidden by rocks and shadows. The hikers passed above, unaware of her presence. But fate had other plans. Among the group was a man whose sharp eyes caught the faint glimmer of her torn scarf snagged on a branch below. He froze, pointing urgently toward the cliffside. "Wait, someone's down there." The others rushed to the edge, peering into the shadows. And as they looked closer, one man's expression changed from concern to determination. His name was Michael, and he was about to change Anna's life forever. But could he reach her before her injuries and exhaustion claimed both her and her child? Michael's sharp eyes locked onto the fragile figure clinging to the narrow ledge far below. For a moment, he thought his mind was playing tricks on him. But then he saw her move, weakly raising a trembling hand. His chest tightened. She was alive, but barely. "Call emergency rescue," one of the hikers shouted, fumbling for a phone. Michael didn't hesitate. He was a man used to making fast, life-changing decisions. A billionaire by fortune, yes, but his real strength came from his willpower and instinct to act when others froze. He dropped his backpack, tied a rope around his waist, and threw the coil to his companions. "Hold this steady. I'm going down," he commanded, his voice calm but firm. "Michael, it's too dangerous," one of them protested. He shot them a sharp look. "There's no time. If we wait, she'll die." Without another word, Michael lowered himself over the edge, his muscles straining as he descended carefully down the cliffside. Loose rocks tumbled into the abyss with every step. The wind whipped around him, but he kept his eyes on the woman below, her pale face growing clearer with every foot he covered. Anna blinked weakly, trying to stay conscious. Through the haze of pain, she saw a figure coming down toward her, a stranger, strong and steady, like an angel descending from heaven. Her lips trembled. "Please, help us." "I've got you," Michael called down, his voice carrying a warmth that pierced through her despair. "Hold on just a little longer." Finally, he reached her. Up close, he saw the cuts across her arms, the blood staining her clothes, the way she cradled her stomach protectively. His heart clenched. Not just a woman, she was carrying a child. "I'm going to tie this rope around you," he said gently, moving with careful precision. "Don't be afraid. I won't let you fall." Anna's eyes filled with tears. Her voice was barely a whisper. He tried to kill me, my husband." Michael's jaw tightened. Rage flickered in his eyes, but he pushed it down. This wasn't the moment for anger. This was about survival. "You're safe now. Focus on breathing. We'll get you and your baby out of here." With steady hands, he secured the rope around her and signaled to the men above. "Pull us up slowly," he shouted. The ascent was agonizing. Anna winced with every movement, clutching her belly, whispering prayers for her unborn child. Michael held her tightly, shielding her with his own body, murmuring words of reassurance as the ledge disappeared beneath them. At last they reached the top. The hikers pulled them onto solid ground. Anna collapsed against Michael's chest, sobbing uncontrollably, her body shaking with both pain and relief. "You're safe now. Michael whispered, brushing hair from her face. He could feel how fragile she was, yet within her tears was a strength that stirred something deep inside him. Sirens echoed in the distance as the rescue team arrived. Michael stayed by her side, refusing to let go even as paramedics rushed forward. Anna's hand clutched his sleeve, her voice desperate. "Don't leave me, please." Michael leaned closer, his voice steady and sincere. "I won't. From this moment on, you're not alone anymore." The first thing Anna noticed when she opened her eyes was the softness of the bed beneath her. The sheets were smooth, cool against her skin, far different from the sterile scent of a hospital or the hard earth of the cliffside. She blinked, struggling to focus. Sunlight poured through tall windows draped with elegant curtains. The room around her was enormous, decorated with marble floors, golden frames, and chandeliers that sparkled like stars. Confusion gripped her. Where was she? A gentle voice broke the silence. "You're awake." Anna turned her head slowly. Sitting beside her was the man who had saved her, the same man who had climbed down into the abyss to pull her to safety. He wore a tailored suit now, his posture calm, his eyes warm but sharp. "You're safe," he reassured her. "My name is Michael." Her lips trembled. Where am I?" "In my home," he answered softly. "You were too injured to return anywhere else. The hospital stabilized you, but I brought you here to recover. You needed peace, not questions." Anna's hands instinctively moved to her stomach. Relief washed over her as she felt the faint movement inside. Her baby was still alive. Tears welled in her eyes, falling before she could stop them. Michael noticed and leaned closer. "Your child is safe, I promise you." His words carried such certainty that Anna believed him, even though he was still a stranger. As the hours passed, Anna was cared for with a tenderness she had never known from David. Nurses checked her wounds, servants brought her warm meals, and Michael himself visited often, making sure she was comfortable. He didn't pry, didn't demand explanations, only offered quiet presence. But Anna's heart was heavy. She replayed the horror again and again, David's hands shoving her, his eyes cold, as she begged for mercy, his voice dripping with hatred. The man she once trusted more than anyone had left her to die. At night, Anna lay awake, staring at the high ceiling of Michael's guest room. She wondered what her parents would think if they knew. She wondered what lies David was telling the world right now. A chilling thought struck her. What if he was telling everyone she was gone? Her chest tightened. She imagined him holding Claire, laughing, celebrating his newfound freedom while she fought to survive. The next morning, Michael entered the room with a tray of food. He studied her pale face. "You didn't sleep." Anna shook her head weakly. "I keep thinking about him. My husband, he wanted me dead." Michael's jaw tensed. He set the tray down carefully. "Then he doesn't deserve to be called your husband." Anna looked at him, startled by the firmness in his tone. For a moment, she saw something in his eyes, an intensity that was more than compassion. But before she could speak, a maid hurried in, holding a newspaper with trembling hands. "Sir, you should see this." Michael unfolded the paper. His expression darkened instantly. He turned the page toward Anna. There, in bold headlines, were the words that made her blood run cold. Tragedy. Businessman David's wife dead in mountain accident. Anna's hands trembled as she reached for the newspaper. Michael held out to her. The bold black letters seemed to mock her existence. "Wife of young businessman dies in mountain accident." Beneath the headline was a smiling picture of her, taken on a happier day, standing beside David. To the world, she was already gone. Her throat closed up as she forced her eyes down to the article. Anna Johnson, beloved wife of businessman David Johnson, tragically lost her life in a fall during a mountain trip. Sources close to the family confirm that David is devastated by the loss. Devastated. The word burned like fire. Anna could still see his face, cold and unflinching as she begged him to save her. She could still hear his voice telling her to let go. Yet here, in black and white, he was playing the grieving widower, fooling everyone. Tears blurred her vision. Her hand instinctively clutched her stomach, as though protecting her baby from the cruel lie. She whispered through clenched teeth, "He wants me erased. He wants me forgotten." Michael sat quietly beside her, his gaze sharp but filled with compassion. He didn't try to take the paper from her. He let her read every cruel word, knowing she needed to face it. The article continued. David Johnson, seen yesterday with close friends and family, has received an outpouring of support. A private memorial service is being arranged. Anna's lips parted in disbelief. A memorial, for her. While she was still alive, still breathing, still fighting. Her heart ached so deeply she thought it might tear apart. "They've buried me in words," she whispered, shaking. "They've stolen my life without even a grave." Michael leaned forward, his voice steady. "They can print whatever lies they want, but the truth is sitting right here. You survived, and that survival is your power." Anna turned to him, her tear-streaked face filled with confusion. "But what can I do? To everyone, I'm already dead. If I go back now, David will just—" Her voice faltered, fear choking her. "He'll finish what he started." Michael's eyes hardened. "Not if I protect you." The certainty in his voice shook her. He wasn't speaking as a stranger. He spoke as someone who had already decided she was under his care. For the first time since the fall, Anna felt the faint spark of safety. But safety wasn't enough. The anger that burned inside her demanded justice. Her husband hadn't just betrayed her. He had tried to kill her, and now he was parading around as a grieving saint, probably with Claire by his side. Anna closed the newspaper with trembling hands. "He thinks I'm gone. He thinks he's won, but he has no idea." Michael leaned closer. "Then don't give him the satisfaction. Rest, heal, and when the time comes, you'll show the world who Anna Johnson really is." Anna's eyes glistened with fresh tears, but this time there was fire behind them. She nodded slowly, pressing a hand to her belly. Still, the question haunted her. How long could she hide in Michael's mansion before David discovered she was alive? The weight of the newspaper article lingered in Anna's mind like a nightmare she couldn't escape. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the headline announcing her death. The smiling photograph of herself beside David, and the cruel lie that he was a grieving husband. It was unbearable. She tried to hold herself together for the sake of her unborn child, but her body was weaker than her will. Days of stress, the trauma of the fall, and the heavy burden of betrayal gnawed at her strength. One afternoon, as she attempted to walk across the grand hall of Michael's mansion, her vision blurred. Her knees buckled. The world tilted, and before she could cry out, she collapsed to the marble floor. "Anna!" Michael's voice thundered as he rushed to her side. He caught her before her head hit the ground, lifting her into his arms with surprising gentleness for a man of his stature. Panic surged through him, but his face remained steady. He carried her swiftly to her room, shouting for the doctor on staff. Within minutes, a physician arrived, checking her pulse, her breathing, her child. Michael stood at the foot of the bed, fists clenched, his eyes never leaving Anna's face. "She's exhausted," the doctor finally said. "Both physically and emotionally. Her body is under extreme stress, but the baby's heartbeat is strong. What she needs now is complete rest. No fear, no anxiety." Michael's jaw tightened. He dismissed the doctor with a nod, but inside he was raging. How could anyone drive a woman to this breaking point, especially her own husband? When they were alone again, Michael sat beside the bed, studying Anna's pale face. She stirred faintly, her lips moving in a whisper. "Don't let him take my baby." Michael leaned close, his hand gently covering hers. "No one will touch you or your child. I swear it." For the first time in his life, the billionaire who had fought wars in boardrooms and conquered empires of steel and glass felt powerless. This wasn't about money or influence. It was about protecting a fragile soul who had already lost everything. And he realized, with startling clarity, that he didn't just want to protect her. He wanted to give her back the life that had been stolen. As night fell, Michael remained by her side. He refused to leave, even as servants urged him to rest. He sat in silence, watching over her like a sentinel. Every time she winced in her sleep, his chest tightened. Every time she whispered her unborn child's name in dreams, his resolve hardened. By dawn, exhaustion lined his face, but his eyes burned with determination. He had made a silent promise in the quiet hours of the night. A promise not just to keep Anna alive, but to make sure justice was done. When Anna awoke and saw him still there, she whispered, "Why are you doing this for me?" Michael met her gaze steadily. His answer was simple, but filled with unshakable conviction. "Because no one who has been betrayed like you should ever have to stand alone again." The following days passed in a blur of rest and recovery. Anna's body slowly regained its strength, but her heart still carried the scars of betrayal. Every night, she woke from nightmares, visions of David's cold eyes, of the moment his hands pushed her toward death. And every night, Michael was there, sitting by her side, steady as a rock. One evening, when the nightmares left her trembling, Michael brought her a cup of warm tea. He sat across from her in the soft glow of the fireplace. His presence was quiet but grounding, like an anchor in a storm. "Do you ever wonder why things happen the way they do?" Anna asked suddenly, staring into the flames. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. Michael studied her carefully. "All the time, but sometimes I think pain is what leads us to the people who are meant to save us." Anna's eyes lifted to his, shimmering with unshed tears. She didn't know what to say. His words stirred something deep inside her, something she thought had died the moment David betrayed her. "Hope." Michael leaned forward, his tone gentle. "You've endured something no one should ever endure. Yet you're still here. That strength isn't just for you, it's for your child too. And you're not alone anymore, Anna. Not as long as I'm here." Her heart thudded in her chest. For weeks, she had felt like a ghost, erased from the world, abandoned by the one who was supposed to protect her. Now, here was a man who spoke with conviction, who looked at her not as a victim, but as someone worth fighting for. For the first time since her fall, Anna allowed herself a small smile. It was faint, fragile, but real. She placed a hand over her belly. "I just want my baby to grow up safe, to know love, not lies." Michael's gaze softened. "Then that's exactly what will happen. I'll make sure of it." His promise echoed in the room like a vow, wrapping around her like a shield. And in that moment, Anna felt the whisper of something she thought she had lost forever, a new beginning. The days turned into weeks. Anna began walking through the mansion gardens, her steps careful but steady. Michael often accompanied her, asking about her dreams, her favorite books, the life she once imagined for herself. Slowly, laughter returned to her lips, tentative at first but growing stronger. Yet even as hope blossomed, fear never left completely. David believed she was dead, and the world believed it too. That gave her safety, but also uncertainty. Could she really stay hidden forever? Could she rebuild her life in the shadows? One afternoon, while walking by the fountain, Anna turned to Michael. "Do you really think I can start over?" Michael looked at her with unwavering certainty. Not just start over, rise higher than before. Stronger. Untouchable. Anna wanted to believe him. She needed to believe him. But deep inside, a shadow whispered that her past was not finished with her yet. And as the wind rustled the trees, carrying with it a strange chill, Anna felt it in her bones. David's lies would not remain buried forever. While Anna was slowly recovering in Michael's mansion, David was basking in a world built on lies. To the public, he was the grieving husband, but behind closed doors, he was celebrating. The insurance payout from Anna's death had begun processing, and her assets held jointly in their marriage were now under his control. He wore his sorrow like a mask in the daylight, but at night the mask slipped away. Claire, his mistress, lounged on the velvet couch of the penthouse he had rented for their private escapes. She sipped champagne, her laughter high and sharp, while David poured himself another glass. The city lights glittered through the windows, casting their reflections against the glass like a cruel parody of happiness. "To us," Claire toasted, raising her glass. "Free at last." David smirked, clinking his glass against hers. "Free, and richer than ever." Claire slid closer to him, her red lips curling into a wicked smile. "I still can't believe how easy it was. Everyone pities you. They look at you like some broken man. If only they knew." David chuckled darkly. "They'll never know. As far as the world is concerned, Anna is gone forever, and no one suspects a thing." But even as he spoke, a flicker of unease crossed his mind. He remembered the moment at the cliff, how Anna had clung desperately to that branch. For a brief second, he had wondered if she might survive. He had left quickly, panicked by the approaching hikers, but surely she was gone. Claire noticed his hesitation. "What is it?" she asked, her tone sharp. David shook his head quickly. "Nothing. Just relief. It's finally over." But it didn't feel over. In his sleep, he was haunted by dreams of Anna's screams, of her eyes filled with betrayal as she begged him to save her. Sometimes he woke in a cold sweat, convinced he heard her voice echoing in the room. Claire pressed herself against him, whispering in his ear, "Forget her. You have me now, and together we'll have everything." He forced a smile, burying the unease that gnawed at his gut. He had won. He had the money, the freedom, and Claire. That was all that mattered. The next evening, David attended a gala hosted by business associates. He wore a black suit, his expression solemn, his story rehearsed. Guests approached him with sympathy, shaking his hand, patting his shoulder. "So tragic," they said. "She was such a kind woman." David nodded, lowering his gaze in practiced grief. Inside, however, he felt nothing but triumph. Every pitying glance was a victory. Every whispered condolence was proof that his act was working. But as the night wore on, something strange happened. Across the ballroom, he caught sight of a woman stepping out of a black car. For a fleeting moment, his heart stopped. She moved with grace, her figure familiar, her head held high. He blinked, shaking it off. It couldn't be. Anna was dead. He had made sure of it. Yet as the woman entered the gala, David's grip on his glass tightened until it nearly shattered. Because what he saw in her eyes was not death. It was fire, and it was coming for him. In the weeks that followed her rescue, Anna's life began to shift in ways she never imagined. Gone was the fragile woman who had begged her husband for love. Gone was the naive wife who believed in promises that were nothing but lies. Slowly, piece by piece, she was rebuilding herself, not just for survival, but for strength. Michael was at the heart of that transformation. He provided more than shelter, he provided guidance. Over elegant breakfasts in the mansion's grand dining room, he spoke to her about business, about strategy, about power. At first, Anna listened quietly, intimidated by the vast world he described, but soon curiosity sparked within her. "You built all this?" she asked one morning, gesturing at the sprawling estate around them. Michael nodded. "From nothing. People underestimated me once. They saw me as weak, incapable. That's when I decided never to let anyone hold power over me again." Anna felt those words echo inside her. She thought of David, how he had looked at her as if she were nothing but a burden, how he had tried to erase her. A quiet fire ignited in her chest. She would not be erased. With Michael's encouragement, Anna began learning. She sat in on his meetings, absorbing the language of contracts, investments, and negotiations. At night, she studied, poring over books and notes while her unborn child kicked gently inside her. Each kick reminded her why she was doing this, to create a life of strength and security for them both. Her reflection in the mirror began to change. The haunted look in her eyes gave way to determination. She dressed not in fragile maternity dresses, but in tailored gowns Michael's staff had fitted for her, clothes that made her feel powerful, radiant. "You look like a queen," Michael said one evening as she entered the study, her posture tall, her presence commanding. Anna blushed faintly but held his gaze. "No, I look like myself, for the first time in a long time." The bond between them deepened with every passing day. Michael never pushed, never demanded more than she could give, but his steady presence, his unwavering belief in her, made Anna feel something she thought she had lost forever: worth. Still, beneath her growing confidence, pain lingered. The world believed she was dead. David was thriving on her death, celebrating with Claire, soaking in sympathy and wealth. The thought made her stomach twist, with both anger and resolve. "I won't hide forever," Anna said one night as she stood by the window, gazing at the city skyline. "He thinks he's won. He thinks I'm gone. But I will come back, and when I do, he'll see the woman he tried to destroy standing stronger than ever." Michael stepped beside her, his eyes glinting with approval. "Then when that moment comes, I'll be at your side." Anna placed a hand on her belly, her voice steady and calm. "He took everything from me, but he won't take our future. This time, I'll write the ending." And as she spoke those words, her transformation was complete. But she had no idea that David was already beginning to suspect the truth, that his dead wife might still be alive. For weeks, David lived as if he had triumphed over fate itself. Money flowed into his accounts, sympathy flowed from his peers, and Claire was always at his side, purring sweet nothings as they enjoyed their stolen paradise. But the human mind, even when drenched in wealth and pleasure, is never free from shadows. The first shadow came during a board meeting. One of his associates mentioned a new investor making waves in the city. "Remarkably sharp woman," the man said. Elegant, commanding presence. She reminds me of Anna, your late wife. David's glass slipped in his hand, spilling wine across the table. He forced a laugh to cover his unease, but the comment gnawed at him long after the meeting ended. The second shadow came when he saw a blurred photo in a business magazine. It wasn't clear, just the silhouette of a woman stepping out of a car beside a tall man. But something in the curve of her posture, the tilt of her chin, it was too familiar. No, David muttered to himself, slamming the magazine shut. It's impossible. She's gone. I made sure of it. Yet the unease grew. At night, he woke drenched in sweat, haunted by dreams of Anna clinging to that branch, her eyes blazing with betrayal. In his dreams, she never let go. She climbed back up, standing tall, whispering words that made his blood run cold. I will return. Claire noticed his restlessness. One evening, as they sat in the penthouse, she curled against him with narrowed eyes. What's wrong with you lately? You've been distracted. David snapped. Nothing's wrong. I just have a lot on my mind. She tilted her head, suspicion sharp in her gaze. Don't tell me you're still thinking about her. She's dead, David, dead. Her words should have comforted him. Instead, they made his skin crawl. Later that week, as he prepared for another gala, David caught sight of a woman across the street. She was dressed in a long coat, her face hidden beneath a wide hat. For a fleeting second, he swore it was Anna. His breath caught, his chest tightened. He pushed through the crowd, but when he reached the spot, the woman was gone. Am I losing my mind? He whispered, gripping the railing until his knuckles turned white. But the doubts refused to leave. And when whispers of a mysterious new businesswoman reached his ears again, this time describing her as graceful, commanding, and fiercely intelligent, David felt a cold dread settle into his bones. Could it be possible? Could Anna have survived the fall? He tried to convince himself it was madness, that the dead did not rise. But the unease spread like poison. Every stranger's face in a crowd, every flicker of a shadow made his heart race with paranoia. And then one evening, while scanning the news online, he froze. His screen showed an image from a high-profile charity event, a woman in a sleek black dress standing beside Michael, the powerful billionaire. Her face was turned slightly away, but her profile, her posture, was unmistakable. David's breath caught. His heart slammed against his ribs. If she was alive, then his perfect victory was about to crumble. The night of the charity gala shimmered with opulence. Crystal chandeliers bathed the grand ballroom in golden light, while the city's most powerful men and women gathered in gowns and tuxedos, sipping champagne and exchanging whispers of influence. It was a night meant for elegance, but beneath the glittering surface, tension simmered like a hidden storm. Anna stood at the entrance, her hand resting gently on her rounded belly, her other arm looped through Michael's. She was radiant in a sleek navy gown, her hair styled in soft waves, her eyes glowing not with fragility but with determination. This was her rebirth. No longer the woman David had tried to erase. She stood as a force, unbroken and stronger than ever. Michael glanced at her, his voice low. Are you ready for this? Anna inhaled slowly, her heart pounding. I've been ready since the day he tried to kill me. Together, they stepped into the ballroom. Heads turned instantly. Conversations faltered. Guests murmured in surprise at the sight of Michael, the reclusive billionaire, arriving with a mysterious woman on his arm. Cameras flashed as curiosity rippled through the crowd. Across the room, David nearly dropped his glass of champagne. His breath caught in his throat as his eyes locked on the woman who was supposed to be dead. Anna, alive. Standing tall, more beautiful, more powerful than ever. His face drained of color, but he quickly masked it with a strained smile. Claire, standing beside him, noticed his sudden stiffness. What is it? She asked, following his gaze. The moment her eyes fell on Anna, her lips parted in shock. No, Claire hissed. It can't be her. She... Shut up, David snapped, his jaw tightening. He forced himself to keep his composure as he straightened his tie. If anyone else noticed his panic, questions would follow. Anna, meanwhile, felt David's eyes burning into her. The sight of him standing so casually, sipping champagne as though he hadn't pushed her toward death, made her stomach churn. But instead of shrinking back, she lifted her chin higher, her steps deliberate as she crossed the floor with Michael at her side. Whispers filled the room. Who is she? Isn't that Some guests exchanged uncertain glances, recalling the tragic story of Anna Johnson's death. Finally, Anna and David stood face to face. For a heartbeat, the entire ballroom seemed to fall silent. "David," Anna said, her voice calm but firm, cutting through the air like a blade. His lips curved into a tight smile. You're alive." The false charm in his tone didn't fool her. She could see the fear flickering in his eyes. Michael stepped forward slightly, his presence radiating authority. "Alive, and stronger than ever. And tonight, the truth will finally be seen." The crowd erupted into murmurs. Reporters leaned forward, cameras flashing wildly. Claire's face paled, her champagne flute slipping from her hand and shattering against the floor. Anna's heart raced, but she stood her ground, her voice steady. "You tried to bury me, David, but I'm here, and I won't be silent anymore." And with that declaration, the stage was set, not just for confrontation, but for David's carefully built empire of lies to crumble before the entire world. The ballroom buzzed with murmurs, every eye fixed on the shocking confrontation. Anna, alive and radiant, stood before David, whose mask of composure was beginning to crack. The tension was so thick it seemed to silence even the orchestra in the corner. Anna took a deep breath, her voice clear and steady. "You told the world I was dead, David. You let them mourn me while you drank champagne with your mistress. But the truth is simple. You tried to kill me." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Guests turned their heads, whispering furiously. Reporters scrambled to capture every word. David forced a chuckle, raising his hands as though to calm the room. "My wife has clearly suffered trauma. She doesn't know what she's saying. Anna, please, let's not do this here." But Anna's eyes burned with fire. "Don't patronize me, David. I remember everything. The drive to the mountains, your false smile, your hands shoving me over the edge while I begged for mercy." Claire stepped forward, her face pale but defiant. "She's lying. She's trying to ruin you, David." Anna turned to her, her voice sharp as steel. "And you, his partner in betrayal. So how many nights did you laugh with him while he planned my death? How many lies did you help him spread?" The crowd gasped again, eyes snapping toward Claire. She faltered, her confidence crumbling under the weight of so many witnesses. Michael stepped beside Anna, his voice low but commanding. "You want proof? We have it." At his signal, one of his assistants wheeled in a large screen. The ballroom lights dimmed, and suddenly, video footage flickered to life. It was taken from a nearby hiker's phone, the day of the accident. Though blurry, it clearly showed Anna clinging desperately to the branch, while David stood above, motionless, making no effort to save her. A collective gasp shook the room. "No," David stammered, his face paling. It's not what it looks like." Anna's voice cut through him like thunder. "It's exactly what it looks like. You tried to let me die. You wanted me gone so you could claim everything for yourself." Her words landed with devastating weight. Several board members exchanged furious glances. Donors whispered angrily. The man they had pitied as a grieving widower was unraveling before their eyes. One guest shouted, "Monster!" Another added, "How could you?" David's mask shattered completely. His voice rose, desperate and defensive. "You don't understand. She was weak, a burden. I deserved better." The room erupted in outrage. Gasps turned into angry cries. Reporters rushed forward, microphones outstretched, flashes blinding. Claire grabbed David's arm, but he shoved her away in frustration. Anna stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "The world knows now. You tried to erase me, but here I stand, alive, with the truth, and you can't bury that." David's breathing grew ragged, sweat dripping from his temples. He scanned the crowd, realizing the empire he built on lies was collapsing before him. And then, in a desperate move, he lunged toward Anna, his hand outstretched. But before he could reach her, Michael stepped forward, his presence like a wall of steel. Michael's arm shot out, blocking David's lunge before it could reach Anna. The crowd gasped as David stumbled back, his face contorted with rage and desperation. "Don't you touch her," Michael said firmly, his voice carrying the weight of authority that silenced even the loudest whispers. His presence was unshakable, a wall between Anna and the man who had tried to end her life. David's chest heaved, his tie loosened as sweat beaded along his temples. "This is a setup," he shouted wildly. "She's manipulating all of you. I'm the victim here." But no one believed him. The video had spoken louder than any words could. Guests shook their heads in disgust, some even turning their backs on him. Years of carefully built reputation were crumbling in a single night. Claire, seeing the walls close in, tried to salvage herself. She stepped forward, her voice trembling. "David, stop talking. We can fix this. We'll leave, start over somewhere else." "Shut up," David snapped, shoving her aside. His face twisted in fury. "This is your fault. You pushed me into this. None of this would have happened if it weren't for you." Claire staggered, her eyes wide with shock. The betrayal cut her deeper than she expected. "My fault?" she spat, her voice rising. "I risked everything for you. I helped you cover your lies. I stood by you when you killed your own wife." Gasps echoed through the room again. Her words, screamed in desperation, sealed both their fates. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras flashed like lightning. The confession was undeniable. David froze, realizing too late the gravity of Claire's outburst. His face went pale, his mouth opening and closing like a man drowning. "No, she's lying. You all heard wrong." But the damage was irreversible. Two uniformed officers who had been invited as security at the gala stepped forward, hands on their cuffs. "David Johnson," one announced firmly, "you're under arrest for attempted murder and fraud." The crowd erupted in applause, cheers of justice ringing louder than the music that had once filled the hall. No, this isn't happening," David roared, trying to push past, but the officers pinned his arms behind him. His once polished suit now looked like the rags of a fallen man. Claire tried to back away, but another officer stopped her. "Claire Matthews, you're under arrest as an accomplice." Her face crumpled. She turned to David, her voice breaking. "You promised me everything." David's eyes burned with venom as he hissed, "And you ruined everything." They were dragged toward the exit, their screams drowned out by the noise of flashing cameras and furious voices. The empire of lies they had built had collapsed in one brutal night. Anna stood tall, her hand on her belly, her heart racing. She had faced her betrayer and lived to see justice begin. Yet as David was shoved through the doors, he twisted his head, his eyes locking on hers one last time. "You think this is over?" he growled, his voice low and chilling. "You'll regret ever coming back." And though he was taken away in chains, the venom in his words left Anna trembling, because she knew his hatred would never die quietly. The days following the gala were a storm of headlines. Newspapers, television broadcasts, and social media all carried the same shocking story. The grieving husband was no victim. He was a murderer in disguise. The video footage, the confession from Claire, and Anna's very presence had shattered David's mask beyond repair. Court proceedings moved quickly. With Michael's influence and the overwhelming evidence, prosecutors filed charges of attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud against David. Claire faced her own charges as an accomplice, her loyalty to him turning to ashes. Their faces were splashed across every news outlet, no longer admired socialites but disgraced criminals. Anna sat in the courtroom, her hands folded over her stomach as she listened to the judge read the charges. Her heart raced, not with fear but with vindication. She had survived, she had exposed the truth, and now justice was finally within reach. David, seated across from her in shackles, glared with venomous hatred. His once proud shoulders were hunched, his suit wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. When the judge denied him bail, the roar of approval from the courtroom was almost deafening. For the first time, the power he had wielded so cruelly was stripped away. Anna's eyes welled with tears, but this time they were tears of release. For months she had carried the weight of fear and betrayal. Now, watching David led away in handcuffs, she felt something she thought she would never feel again. Freedom. After the hearing, reporters surrounded her, shoving microphones forward. "Mrs. Johnson, how does it feel to be alive after the world believed you were dead?" Anna met their gaze, her voice steady. "It feels like being given a second chance. But this isn't just about me. It's about every woman who has been silenced, every woman who has been betrayed. We are not weak. We are stronger than the lies meant to destroy us." The crowd erupted in applause. Her words spread like wildfire, transforming her from a victim into a symbol of resilience. Strangers sent her letters of support. Women reached out, thanking her for giving them courage. At Michael's mansion, life began to feel different. Anna no longer wandered the halls like a ghost. She laughed again. She planned for the future. She even sat with Michael in his study. discussing foundations they could create to help women in crisis. "You've become more than a survivor," Michael told her one evening as they looked over documents. "You've become a leader." Anna smiled faintly, placing a hand on her belly. "Maybe this was the reason I survived, to build something greater than myself, for my child, for others." Michael's eyes softened as he studied her. He admired not just her beauty, but the strength that radiated from her. And though he said nothing then, in his heart he knew he was falling in love with her. But even in this rebirth, shadows lingered. One evening, as Anna stood on the balcony watching the sunset, she felt a chill crawl up her spine. She couldn't shake the echo of David's final words at the gala. What if his threat wasn't empty? What if he still had one last card to play, even from behind bars? The months after the trial were a season of healing. David and Claire were both convicted, he for attempted murder and fraud, she for conspiracy and obstruction. Their names, once whispered with admiration in social circles, were now spat with disgust. They would spend years behind bars, their empire of lies reduced to dust. For Anna, the verdict was more than justice. It was closure. The chains of fear that had weighed her down for so long were finally broken. Yet freedom was not just about escaping David's cruelty. It was about creating a life where she and her child could thrive. On a crisp spring morning, Anna gave birth. The cries of her newborn filled the hospital room, and tears streamed down her face as she held the tiny bundle against her chest. Her baby's heartbeat, strong and steady, was proof that miracles existed. She whispered, "You're my reason, my hope, my new beginning." Michael stood beside her, his eyes soft with emotion. He had been there through every contraction, every tear, every moment of fear and joy. When Anna looked up at him, she saw not just the man who had saved her, but the man who had stayed. Weeks later, Anna returned to Michael's mansion, not as a broken guest, but as a woman ready to start a new chapter. The halls no longer felt foreign. They felt like home. Servants greeted her warmly, not out of duty, but with genuine affection. The gardens, once a place of quiet walks for recovery, now echoed with the laughter of a mother holding her child. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of gold, Michael invited her to the balcony. He stood nervously, something rare for a man of his power. "Anna," he began, his voice steady but his hands clenched at his sides. "When I found you on that cliff, I didn't know what role I would play in your life. I only knew I couldn't let you fall. Since then, I've watched you rise stronger than anyone I've ever known. And I don't want to imagine a future without you in it." Anna's breath caught, her heart raced, but not with fear. With something she hadn't felt in so long. Love that was safe. Love that was real. Michael knelt, pulling a velvet box from his pocket. Inside sparkled a ring, elegant yet understated. "Will you allow me the honor of being not just your protector, but your partner, your husband, and a father to your child?" Tears filled Anna's eyes. She thought of the journey, the betrayal, the fall, the survival, the rebirth. She thought of her baby, the symbol of her fight to live. And she thought of the man before her, whose love was built not on lies, but on unwavering truth. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking into a smile. "Yes, Michael. 1,000 times, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and the crowd of friends and staff erupted in applause. Anna held her child close, as Michael wrapped his arms around them both. For the first time in a long time, Anna felt peace. The scars of her past would never fully vanish, but they no longer defined her. She was no longer the woman who had been pushed to her death. She was the woman who had risen, stronger, loved, and unbreakable. And as the stars lit the sky above, Anna knew she had finally found her forever. So my dear friends, the story has come to its close. If you're still here with me right now, it means something in Anna's journey has touched your heart. Maybe it reminded you of your own battles, your own moments when life tried to break you. And yet, like Anna, you survived. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Anna's pain became her path to strength. Her story teaches us this. Betrayal can wound you, loss can shake you, but resilience will always lift you higher. Love that is true, whether from others or from yourself, will heal what was broken. If you feel this message in your heart, I ask you, like, share, and subscribe. Let's spread stories of courage and healing, because you never know who out there needs to hear it tonight.